How much do you make, and is it enough? Those personal questions are at the heart of an escalating war over wages here in Florida. They could reshape the state's economy and impact millions of jobs for generations to come.
And new tonight in a special investigative Full Circle report, our Paul Legrone follows the dark money behind the minimum wage fight with in-depth interviews from all sides. He uncovers the fault lines in a growing political battle between workers and employers here in the Sunshine State.
In the land of sand, sun, and surf,
I actually take the bus, and some occasions I take a bicycle.
there's a grittier side of paradise.
If I were by myself, I would be out in the street.
Bobby Fields works the overnight shift at McDonald's.
It's not easy at all. It's difficult going through paycheck.
He joined Fight for 15, an expanding political movement pushing for a $15 federal minimum wage.
People like myself, we're all fighting for the same reasons. We fighting for the right to be treated fairly, and we all have a right to be paid fairly.
It's a fight pitting employees against employers, and now it's a fight that directly involves you.
So if you win big, we win big. Morgan & Morgan, forthepeople.com.
TV attorney John Morgan is the face and the money behind Florida for a Fair Wage.
People vote for themselves. And what I'm asking in this time is to vote for the other guy.
Morgan is pushing to put the $15 minimum wage measure on the 2020 ballot for voters to decide. And according to state campaign finance records, he's raised more than $4 million on the petition campaign.
I'm going to war over slave wages.
It's completely offensive.
Keith Overton is the president of Tradewinds Island Resorts on St. Pete Beach.
We're going to lose business. And ultimately, this is going to cost people jobs.
He says even though the proposed raise would be phased in over 6 years, it would hurt Florida's tourism industry and backfire on workers.
If you add those 5 years together, that's $6.5 million that have just been taken from our profits. And there's no real way for us to make that up unless we pass that on through by pricing to the consumer, or we lay people off and eliminate jobs.
But we found out the facts of minimum wage are now being manipulated by a cottage industry of political action groups trying to win votes and shape public opinion. We followed the money and uncovered a deep network of front groups bankrolled by a billionaire businessman and one of the most influential lobbyists in Washington, D.C. The I-Team found one of those front groups, Employment Policies Institute, EPI, created by D.C. lobbyist Richard Berman, known for his strategy of using nonprofit groups with names that sound like independent think tanks, but are actually agenda-driven political organizations in favor of big business. We dug into IRS tax records going back 7 years. Since 2010, EPI has spent nearly $19 million fighting against the Fight for 15. EPI pays out millions every year for websites like minimumwage.com, with links to research opposing minimum wage increases. Some of it winding up in newspapers like this article in the Keys Weekly. The tax records also reveal EPI promotes its research, producing everything from commercials to billboards to a mobile app warning about the consequences of a rising minimum wage, and a survey of hundreds of Florida businesses. In 2015, EPI spent $540,000 hiring independent economists to do research on the effects of wage increases. But all of EPI's published research frames the $15 minimum wage as bad for business and bad for jobs.
Wage growth is directly linked to things like sales performance at stores and restaurants.
ABC Action News also found a link between EPI and Job Creators Network Foundation, a group founded by billionaire Bernie Marcus, the former CEO of Home Depot. Its mission: to help employers educate employees about what they call bad government policies. They run this website called Information Station, complete with videos and articles, many of them slanted against wage increases. And while they claim to not endorse political candidates or parties, we found financial disclosure filings with the Federal Election Commission showing the group's political arm did pay thousands of dollars to support 4 candidates for Congress, all of them Republicans. And who did the Job Creators Network pay that money to? Richard Berman's company, which then ran print ads in support of all those candidates.
I believe that the hopeless and the helpless and the powerless and the desperate never have anybody that speaks for them.
But while John Morgan claims this,
I'm paying everybody in my firm $15 an hour, day one.
We found his own company hired a third-party call center that pays below $15 an hour. Office Gurus handles calls for Morgan & Morgan only when their own call centers get overwhelmed with too many calls. Office Gurus is located inside that office park in Pinellas County. Current job listings show that the people who work the phones here make $12 an hour. They also operate call centers just like that in El Salvador that advertise jobs paying $650 a month. Morgan told ABC Action News, quote, "I can't control what others I rely on pay. Not my lawn care, not the janitor service in my buildings, or those that supply my office supplies or coffee. All I can control is what I control, and making sure Florida gets to vote for work with dignity." He also added that people in his own call centers do make $15 an hour plus bonuses.
The question really becomes, what does it do for the state of the overall economy?
USF economics professor Chris Jones says the reality is the Florida economy depends on a minimum wage.
What's going to happen is some of those individuals will get that higher wage, and some of those individuals are going to lose their jobs.
In fact, the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office released this report in July, concluding that a $15 minimum wage would boost the wages of 17 million workers, but 1.3 million other workers would become jobless. It said the raise would reduce business income and all consumers would pay higher prices. We reached out to both EPI and Job Creators Network. EPI has yet to respond to our questions. Job Creators told ABC Action News a $15 minimum wage would create job loss. Meanwhile, John Morgan's Florida for a Fair Wage petition appears to have enough signatures to make it on the ballot in 2020. It would need support from at least 60% of voters to become law. Paul Legrone, ABC Action News.